Hi, this is Dave Zeiler. I'm here with another Money Morning Minute, and we're going to talk about recent developments in cryptocurrencies, and in particular Bitcoin.
Yeah. So thanks for sitting down with us. What are some of the factors that were able to bring Bitcoin up to 9,000 over this weekend?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that we've breached 9,000, but it wasn't that long ago that Bitcoin was down at 3750 on April the 1st. It's gone up 120% in just 2.5 months, which is something that hardly anybody's talking about, and certainly any other investment that would have gone up 120% in 2.5 months would be all over CNBC. For some reason with Bitcoin, it's not getting that kind of attention.
Yeah. So what led into that then? What contributed?
Well, one of the things was that the Consensus Conference in New York, which I went to, was held in the first week of May. And that's when a huge part of this jump took place. It was trading at about 6,000 in the week before, and by the week of the conference, it was at 8,000. It went up $2,000 in about a week. And I think the conference drove that, and in part, it's because the conference didn't necessarily cause it, but it draws attention to a lot of the issues that are driving the price higher. Like one of the things is like the regulators were there at the conference, and it draws attention to the fact that these regulators are taking their time, but they're also not against cryptocurrency. They do not want to crush it or anything. They are very much in favor of letting it blossom and encouraging innovation, but they have to be very careful what they do because they have to protect the consumers.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the atmosphere and the environment became clear that it was more friendly to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, and that was one big part of it. And the other big part, of course, is that at the conference, you had these really big companies like IBM and Microsoft and Deloitte who had booths there and were very much a big part of it. They were co-sponsors. And I think people see that and then they realize this is really happening, that major companies are getting involved in this space, and it's starting to get integrated into the business world in a way that it wasn't before.
Yeah. So looking forward, now that we've kind of crossed and are holding above this pretty big milestone and a pretty big mark for Bitcoin, what are a couple things you're watching for the rest of 2019?
Probably the biggest thing, I believe, is going to be Bitcoin futures. I mean, already we've seen in April and May a huge spike in the average daily contracts that are on the CME. They went from averaging about 4,000 a day to 9,900 a day in April, and then they went up to 13,600 a day in May. And this is where a lot of the institutional money is coming into play. People don't seem to be conscious of the fact that there is institutional money coming into the space. It's not something that's far off in the future. It's already happening. We've already seen it in the futures market. And at the conference, at the Consensus Conference, a representative from ICE was there, and they said that right now 20% of these big investors are already involved in cryptocurrency. They've already bought some, and they'd like to buy more, but right now the whole infrastructure isn't there yet. As that gets built out and we see more of these futures markets, ICE is getting ready to launch their futures market called BACT. They have a subsidiary that's going to run this, and they're going to start testing in July. So that may even launch by the end of this year. And as you see more ways for the institutional investors to get into the space, you're going to see a lot more of that money come into the space, and that's going to be a huge driver of the price. And then you're going to see more retail investors looking at that, and then they're all going to want to jump in, and it's all going to feed on itself.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any just quick thoughts before we finish? Do you have like quick reactions to Libra and Facebook's announced coin coming up next year?
Yeah, they're going to launch this Libra coin, and who knows when it's really going to launch, because already regulators and other governments are very skeptical of it. As regards to Bitcoin is concerned, I don't think it's going to be a big deal, because what they're doing is very different from what Bitcoin is. It's going to be a stable coin. In other words, it's going to have a kind of a set value that's based on the fiat currencies like the dollar and the euro. And it's going to be used for commerce, to buy things through Facebook and other places. I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact on Bitcoin. It might be successful, On the other hand, maybe it won't get off the ground because there's a lot of skepticism around it. And unlike Bitcoin, Facebook will have a central point of, failure where governments could come in and shut it down. They could prevent it from doing anything because there's an actual company, an entity that they could go after. Bitcoin, they haven't been able to do anything about because it's this global decentralized network.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it. It's something to keep an eye on, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for sitting down and answering a couple questions. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And of course, everyone can follow Dave on Twitter and on Monday Morning with his variety of articles coming out about Bitcoin and a lot of other topics in the tech space. So thanks again.
Right.